Recently, police departments actually started issuing this really bizarre warning to
Oh,
parents.
about the phones.
Yeah, exactly. They were finding that smartphones were spontaneously combusting, like literally overheating, catching fire, and just melting right into teenage bed sheets.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And the craziest part is, it wasn't some like manufacturing defect with the phones themselves. It was happening because teenagers are actually sleeping with their charging devices tucked directly underneath their pillows.
Right, because they are essentially using a piece of lithium-ion technology as a stuffed animal, basically.
Wow, yeah.
It's not just resting on the nightstand, they are physically sleeping on top of it, which creates this massive insulated heat trap.
It is the absolute literal definition of being physically enmeshed with technology.
Yeah.
I mean, the screen is the very last thing they look at before they close their eyes, and the hardware is it's physically pressed against their heads while they sleep. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking on a massive mission today. We're exploring a really staggering stack of longitudinal data. We're talking surveys spanning 11 million Americans over several decades.
It's a huge data set.
Massive. And we're using it to unpack the unprecedented, abrupt behavioral shifts that basically define IGEN. And just so we're all on the same page, to define our terms up front, we are talking about the generation born between 1995 and 2012.
And it is so vital to understand the scale of what we are looking at here. We aren't analyzing a few localized opinion polls or some subjective essays about kids these days.
Right, no anecdotal stuff.
Exactly. We are looking at hard, continuous data sets that track daily habits, mental health, social behaviors. This is basically the granular map of exactly how the smartphone revolutionized human development.
I gotta say, when I first opened up the data charts tracking these behaviors, I actually had to double check the axes. I really thought I was misreading them.
Why is
Well, usually when you look at generational shifts, say like the transition from boomers to Gen X or Gen X to millennials, the charts look like rolling hills, right? The changes just build slowly over a couple of decades.
Right, gradual trends.
Exactly. But these charts, specifically starting right around 2011 and 2012, they do not look like hills. They look like sheer cliffs.
Oh, totally.
It's just steep mountain drop-offs in almost every single category of human behavior.
Which, is not a coincidence at all. 2011 and 2012 is the exact window when smartphones achieved total market saturation in the US.
Of course.
Yeah, it's the moment when having a computer in your pocket went from being like a luxury item for business executives to a mandatory appendage for middle schoolers.
Right.
It really represents one of the most sudden, profound cultural shifts we have ever recorded in modern history.
So if you are listening to this right now, maybe on your commute or while you're making breakfast and you were trying to manage these young people at work or teach them in a classroom or just raise them in your own home, consider this data your ultimate decoder ring.
It really is.
Because to really understand those sheer cliffs in the data and those 6 hours a day these teens are spending on their screens, we first have to look at what they're not doing.
Yes. The absence of behavior.
Exactly. We have to move from that device melting in their bed to the physical world they're actively avoiding.
And what we are seeing there is just a complete collapse of traditional adult milestones. Like the entire trajectory of adolescence, the stepping stones we historically use to transition from childhood to adulthood, has fundamentally changed.
I want to read some of these numbers because they're just wild. High school seniors in 2015 were going out less often without their parents than 8th graders did in 2009.
That is just wow.
Think about that for a second. 18-year-olds are leaving the house less than 14-year-olds used to. There's this one survey that describes high schoolers whose idea of a, wild weekend is going to the local mall, but their mom is walking 10 feet behind them the entire time.
Right, and that decline permeates every single marker of independence. Take driving, for instance.
Oh, yeah. Getting a license used to be everything.
Historically, getting your driver's license on your 16th birthday was the ultimate ticket to freedom. Now, 1 in 4 high school seniors doesn't even have a driver's license.
A quarter of them.
Yeah. They simply opt out. They're perfectly content to just be chauffeured by their parents to wherever they need to go.
And when it comes to dating, it has completely devolved. The data shows that the initial stage of courtship is now just, quote-unquote, talking.
Right.
Which happens entirely via apps, snapping, texting. The whole concept of an in-person date has plummeted. And I mean, consequently, yes, the teen birth rate is at an all-time low. It's been cut by more than half since its modern peak in the early 90s.
Which is, undeniably a public health victory, but But we really have to look at the mechanism driving that victory.
It's not what we think it is.
No, it's not happening because of better sex education or highly responsible decision making. It's happening because of sheer physical isolation. And it's not just dating. Teen employment has also cratered.
Oh, the money aspect is fascinating.
Yeah, 20% of 17 and 18-year-olds manage absolutely no money of their own. None. No
Yeah.
part-time job, not even a fixed allowance they have to budget. They rely entirely on basically a bank of mom and dad request system whenever they want to buy something.
You know, I have a really hard time wrapping my head around the popular media narrative surrounding this.
How so?
Well, you see all these think pieces praising this generation, calling them virtuous or they're behaved, just because they aren't out joyriding or partying or getting into trouble.
Oh, sure, the good kids narrative.
Exactly, and I just have to push back on that because praising these teens for being virtuous, for not rebelling, is like, well, it's like praising a zoo animal for not hunting when the zookeeper is sliding pre-cut steaks under the cage door every single day.
That's a great way to put it.
It has nothing to do with internal virtue. It's a completely altered environment. They aren't behaving better. They just aren't in the wild anymore, you know?
No, that analogy actually taps directly into the evolutionary biology of this whole shift.
Really? How so?
There is this theoretical framework in the research called life history theory, and it basically posits that human development isn't fixed. It subconsciously calibrates to the environment you're in. So the data suggests today's teens are following what evolutionary biologists call a slow life strategy.
Right, the slow life strategy. How does that actually work in the brain? I mean, are you saying these teens are biologically maturing slower? Or is this purely like a social construct built by overprotective parents?
It's a psychological adaptation to an environment that feels very secure but also highly competitive.
Okay, unpacking that a bit.
Right, so a fast life strategy happens in unpredictable, harsh environments. Think of like the mid-20th century. Families were larger, child mortality was higher, and the primary goal was basic survival and getting out of the house as quickly as possible to start your own family.
You grow up fast because you just have to.
Exactly. The brain calibrates to mature quickly because life is uncertain. But a slow life strategy emerges in cultures with smaller families, immense economic pressure, and an intense focus on cultivating each child over a longer period.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, when the ultimate goal shifts from basic physical survival to getting into a top-tier university to maintain socioeconomic status, the biological imperative just slows down.
So the parents are hyper involved.
Super hyper involved. Parents supervise everything. Risk is minimized. Violin lessons by age 5 become like way more important than learning to navigate a neighborhood conflict on your own.
Right.
So under life history theory, an 18-year-old today is developmentally operating like a 15-year-old from the 1980s. 18 is simply the new 15.
Okay, let's pause on that for a second because this is where the logic feels like it should break down.
What do you mean?
Well, if 18 is new 15 and you have these young adults essentially confined to a highly supervised, pressurized childhood for way longer, shouldn't we be seeing a massive spike in teenage rebellion?
You would think so.
Right. Usually when you lock a teenager down and track their every move on a GPS app, they push back harder, they sneak out, they explode. So why aren't they fighting with their parents?
Because they don't want to leave the cage.
Wow.
Yeah, iGen teens actually fight with their parents far less than any previous generation on record. Runaway rates have absolutely plummeted. There is no desperate push for independence anymore. Instead, there's this deep psychological embrace of childhood.
They're just leaning into it. You definitely see it everywhere in the culture right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the phenomenon of #adulting.
Oh, absolutely.
This generation took the noun adult and literally turned it into a verb that essentially translates to doing exhausting, horrible, unavoidable responsibilities.
Yeah.
You scroll through that hashtag, and it's full of young people posting like, I had to make my own doctor's appointment today. I am done adulting.
It functions as a linguistic shield, really. It represents a profound desire to stay in the safety of the cocoon. The research actually notes a massive rise in coping mechanisms that revert to childhood comforts.
Like what?
Well, think about the explosion of adult coloring books marketed specifically for stress relief. Or high school seniors universally turning to Disney movies like Frozen or Tangled to self-soothe when the pressures of approaching adulthood get too high.
That is fascinating.
They view adulthood not as a liberation but as a trap.
But There's a really serious caveat to all this safety, and it shows up glaringly in the alcohol data because the longitudinal surveys show that 8th and 10th graders are drinking far less than they used to, which, again, huge public health win on the surface, right?
Right, on the surface, yes. However, the exact same data sets reveal that college-age binge drinking rates remain virtually unchanged from previous generations.
Unchanged.
Unchanged. And this really highlights the hidden danger of this developmental delay.
Wait, so they're suddenly just hitting a wall.
They're going from 0 to 60 in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're kept in this prolonged, sheltered childhood, they arrive on a college campus entirely naive to alcohol.
They haven't practiced at all.
Exactly. They haven't had the messy, gradual learning curve of navigating a few beers at a high school basement party where the stakes were, frankly, relatively low.
Right, they're supervised by no one all of a sudden.
Yeah, they are suddenly dropped into a heavy, high-stakes binge drinking culture without any physiological tolerance or the social navigation skills to say no. That rapid acceleration is incredibly dangerous.
Which raises a pretty terrifying question, honestly. I mean, we've spent decades telling parents to protect their kids at all costs. We put padded floors on the playgrounds. We track them on Life 360. We schedule every single minute of their extracurriculars.
Yeah.
Did we succeed too well? Like, have we accidentally engineered the fundamental human desire for independence right out of them?
Well, the behavioral data strongly suggests we have. We've removed the physical friction of growing up. And because they aren't working part-time jobs, they aren't driving, they aren't going on physical dates, and they aren't sneaking out to parties.
They have all this time.
They've generated a massive surplus of leisure time.
A total vacuum of time. And that time has to go somewhere.
And it goes straight into the screen.
Yeah.
This brings us to this 6-hour substitute.
Okay, let's break down those 6 hours because the sheer volume of it is staggering.
It really is.
And just to be clear, this is daily leisure screen time, meaning it does not include doing homework or writing essays on a laptop for school. We are talking 2¼ hours of texting, 2 hours of general internet browsing and scrolling, and an hour and a half of gaming.
Every day.
6 hours a day, every single day,
Yeah.
absorbed by a glowing rectangle.
Though one fascinating sociological side effect the data reveals here is that smartphones have effectively erased the internet access gap across social class and race.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, lower-income teens now spend just as much time online as affluent teens. Digital access is nearly universal.
But the experience of that universal access is deeply, deeply gendered. I mean, what they're actually doing online looks entirely different depending on whether you are looking at girls or boys.
Oh, completely.
For girls, it is the absolute pressure cooker of social media.
Mhm.
We aren't just talking about keeping in touch with friends. We are talking about maintaining algorithmic Snapchat streaks, hunting for Instagram likes, and just the crushing anxiety of not being tagged in a photo.
And we really need to unpack the psychological weight of that. Early media theorists used to think of social media as just a digital bulletin board, you know?
Like a place to just post updates.
Right.
Yeah.
But for IGN girls, it is the entire architecture of their social hierarchy. Tagging on Instagram has literally replaced sitting together at the high school cafeteria table.
That is so intense.
And the algorithm weaponizes exclusion. Like, if 4 of your friends go out, post a picture, and don't tag you, it isn't just a slight. It is a public broadcast to your entire high school that you have been excluded.
It's visible to everyone.
Everyone. And it triggers the exact same neurological pain receptors as physical ostracization, but it happens 24 hours a day.
It's just continuous partial attention to your own social survival.
Yeah.
That sounds exhausting.
It is.
And for boys, the architecture looks different, but it's just as immersive. It's the multiplayer gaming headset.
Right.
There's this one fascinating anecdote in the research about a 16-year-old named Max. His only social activity is talking to other players on a headset while he's actively destroying enemy towers in a video game.
Yeah, or the 20-year-old who frustratedly explains that his parents are idiots because they don't understand that you, quote-unquote, can't pause a live multiplayer game when they ask him to come down for dinner.
But they're interrupting real life.
Exactly. What we're seeing here is a fundamental shift in utility. Previous generations, like millennials and Gen X, we use digital communication, like flip phones or AIM Messenger, as a tool to arrange physical meetups.
Right. Where are we meeting tonight?
Yeah, the digital space was the map, the physical world was the destination. But for IGN, the digital communication is the meetup. The digital space is the destination.
It's this incredible, almost tragic irony. If you take a step back, you have an entire generation walking around with the entirety of human knowledge, like the greatest libraries ever assembled, just resting comfortably in their front pockets.
Yes.
And how are they wielding this godlike technology to maintain arbitrary digital streaks with people they see every day anyway, and to watch 10-second YouTube compilation videos of dogs climbing over baby gates?
Right. And as entertaining as those dog videos might be, this constant rapid-fire digital consumption is actively rewiring their neural pathways.
Changing their actual brains.
The brain adapts to what it's fed. And when it is fed a constant diet of high dopamine, low friction micro-content, it kills older forms of media and physical gathering.
Let's look at what this is doing to their brains when it comes to sustained focus,
Hmm.
because statistics on reading are just brutal.
Oh, they are grim.
In the late 1970s, the vast majority of teenagers read a book or a magazine every single day for pleasure. But by 2015, 1 in 3 high school seniors read 0 books for pleasure in an entire year. Not one book.
And newspaper and magazine readership hasn't just declined, it has literally fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
And physical gatherings share the exact same fate. High school seniors today spend only a third of the time at physical parties that their Gen X counterparts did back in 1987.
Wow. Third.
Yeah. You know, early tech optimists predicted that the internet would simply supplement our physical lives and our old media. They thought we'd just read our long-form novels on a Kindle instead of paper.
Right. The medium would just change.
Exactly. But the longitudinal data proves that theory dead wrong. The internet doesn't supplement, it outright replaces.
So if they aren't reading and they aren't socializing in person, what is the academic cost of all this? We have an entire generation whose brains are adapting to a 10-second reward loop.
Well, the academic cost is highly...
You know, if you've ever tried to train a new 22-year-old hire at your office and felt frustrated that they keep checking their phone during a 30-minute meeting, this is exactly why.
Yes, exactly.
I think about it like this. Print media, or deep work, is a grueling long-distance marathon. But these kids have only ever trained for digital 50-yard dashes.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You cannot hand an 18-year-old an 800-page college textbook and expect them to run a marathon when their brain has literally been biologically wired to switch tasks every 19 seconds.
Yeah.
They just haven't built the cardiovascular endurance for deep thought.
That is precisely the issue. The neural pathways required for deep reading and sustained focus are like muscles. If you don't use them, they atrophy.
So bringing all these threads together for you listening,
Yeah.
whether you manage a team of 20-somethings, you're designing a high school syllabus, or you're just trying to connect with your own teenager at the dinner table, the goal of diving into this massive stack of data isn't to sit around and point fingers or blame iGen for being lazy. It's about understanding the environment that built them.
Completely.
You simply cannot expect them to have the same work ethic training, the same physical socializing skills, or the same reading endurance that you had at their exact same age.
You have to meet them where they are. They aren't broken. They are perfectly adapted to the digital world they were raised in.
Yeah.
So if you're an employer or an educator, that means you have to break down massive tasks into smaller, manageable pieces. You have to offer conversational, interactive learning rather than giant walls of static text.
Adapt to the 19 seconds.
Right. And most importantly, you have to have a deep empathy for their profound aversion to traditional adult responsibilities.
They were following that slow life strategy, and they are terrified of leaving the cocoon. So I want to leave you with a final lingering question to ponder on your own today. Think about this. If adolescence has historically been this messy physical training ground, the place where we stumble, skin our knees, learn to navigate risk, and build the social armor required for adulthood,
Yeah.
and we have now replaced that physical ground entirely with a highly curated algorithmic virtual one,
Yeah.
what happens to the fabric of our society when this generation inevitably has to inherit the physical world?
Because eventually the real world cannot be paused, it cannot be muted, and it cannot be swiped away.
It's a lot to think about. And it certainly makes you look differently at that teenager fast asleep with their smartphone tucked right underneath their pillow, tethered tightly to a digital world while the physical one waits. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the sources. We'll catch you next time.